Hello and welcome to the 53rd discussion of the smart world around us, brought to you by Smart-EDU Hub. Today, we're diving into a fascinating article titled Comparative Smart City Governance, Lessons from Poland for Advancing Romania's Urban Digital Transformation by the researchers Katalin Vrabi and Patricia Krause-Malszankowska. As always, you can find a link to the full article right there in the description below. So let's get into it. So let's start with a big question. When you hear the term smart city, what pops into your head? Is it just, all the flashy tech, the sensors, the free Wi-Fi, the apps? Or is there something more fundamental going on underneath it all? And that's where we get to the real heart of our discussion today, smart city governance. The best way to think about it is like a city's operating system, right? It's the background code, the essential framework that makes sure all that cool tech isn't just a bunch of expensive, disconnected gadgets. It's what makes them work together towards a real vision for making the city better. Because without that solid governance, you just end up with a bunch of cool projects that don't really add up to anything. Okay, so to see what this looks like in the real world, let's dive into our first case study, Poland. Now, the article really holds Poland up as an example of a super structured approach. They're building their smart city vision from both the top down and the bottom up, all at the same time. See, Poland's model isn't just some one-off project. It's a whole system. They've woven their smart city goals right into their big national development plans. Then, at the city level, everything is built around these clear pillars, like the economy or the environment. And here's the kicker. They use KPIs, key performance indicators, to actually measure if they're making progress. All of this is backed up by some serious data infrastructure, a big focus on cybersecurity, and making sure everyone involved is actually talking to each other. And you can really see this paying off. Get this. Poland has rocketed to number 3 in Europe for open data maturity. Now, that's not just some number on a chart. It shows a deep national commitment to being transparent and using real data to make decisions. It's proof that their system is actually working. All right, so that's Poland's structured world. Now let's switch gears and look at our second case study, Romania. The article describes Romania's journey as really ambitious and full of enthusiasm, but with a very different focus. Instead of that top-down framework, the approach here is much more decentralized and project-oriented. Basically, you have individual cities leading the charge with their own initiatives, which sets up a really interesting contrast right from the start. And when you look closer, you start to see some common patterns emerge from this project-first approach. A lot of the effort is fueled by pilot projects and, of course, the availability of EU funding. This leads to a focus on what you might call quick wins, the highly visible stuff like smart lighting, parking apps, and CCTV. And while the ambition is definitely there in the city strategies, the quality, it can be all over the place. And that really comes back to the lack of a single unifying national framework to guide everyone. Okay, so let's put these two paths head to head. The researchers break down the comparison across 4 key pillars. And this is where we can really start to see the gaps and, more importantly, the opportunities. Let's start with Pillar 1, the economy. The big difference here really boils down to outcomes versus outputs. Poland is all about quantitative targets. They're tracking things like R&D spending as a percentage of GDP. But in Romania, the focus is more on the facilities, like building shiny new innovation hubs, but often without the specific, measurable goals for what those hubs are supposed to accomplish. It's a subtle but crucial difference. And when we move on to Pillar 2, society, we see that same pattern playing out. Poland is embedding real-world outcome indicators, like life expectancy, directly into their strategies. Romania, on the other hand, has the projects, things like telemedicine, which are great, but they're often missing those clear, measurable targets. Same thing with public engagement. Tools like participatory budgeting are pretty common in Polish cities, but they're a lot harder to find in Romania. You guessed it, it's the same story in the environment pillar. Poland is setting hard targets for things like emissions levels or how much green space there is per person. Meanwhile, Romania is great at deploying the tech, installing air quality sensors, for example, but they're often doing it without defining the specific reduction targets that would tell them if it's actually working. The paper also points out that climate resilience is a pretty big blind spot in a lot of the Romanian strategies. But this next one, Pillar 4, governance, this is where the article says the most critical gap really opens up. In Poland, you see a strong national push for open data. You see official roles like smart city officers and systems for actually monitoring progress. In Romania, these things are just, they're much less developed. The World Bank has even flagged the lack of open data. And a huge weakness is that most strategies don't even have a plan for monitoring and evaluation. How do you know if you're succeeding if you're not measuring? But look, this isn't about pointing fingers. The whole point of this comparison is to find a way forward. And that's exactly what the article does. It lays out a really clear blueprint with actionable lessons that could help guide Romania's urban transformation. So here's the game plan they propose, a 5-step blueprint. First step, establish a national framework to get everyone on the same page with common standards. Second, make data and cybersecurity a top priority. Third, and this is huge, adopt indicator-driven management. Actually define what success looks like and track it. Fourth, build up that institutional capacity, create dedicated teams and invest in skills. And last but not least, number 5, foster real, citizen-centric inclusion. Make sure the tech goes hand in hand with digital literacy and tools for public engagement. And all of this really leads to a powerful quote from the paper that just perfectly sums up the entire argument. It goes, "Technology alone does not make a city smart. Strategy, institutions, data, cybersecurity, funding alignment, and citizen centricity do." That really says it all, doesn't it? So, I want to leave you with a final question to chew on. If smart city governance really is the operating system for a city, is your city running on the latest version? All right, that's all for this discussion. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you found this useful, please do like and subscribe to the Smart-EDU Hub channel to be the first to enjoy new content. Stay smart with Smart-EDU Hub. And one last reminder, the link to that fantastic article is waiting for you in the description below.